The cameras flashed, the crowd froze. And just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession. The headline plastered across every digital timeline was basically inescapable. What reportedly happened behind Chloe Fineman's SNL exit?
It genuinely plays out like a modern thriller, doesn't it? I mean, we have this sudden departure of a major television fixture, the immediate vacuum of information, and then the way the public just instantly rushes in to fill those blanks with the most dramatic narrative possible.
Right.
We are deeply addicted to the mystery of what happens when the cameras are finally turned off.
We absolutely are. Welcome to Starscope Report. Join us as we uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame. And today's deep dive is a big one.
Oh yeah, it really is.
We are bypassing the surface-level noise today to look at exactly what happened in July 2026 when Chloe Fineman announced she was leaving Saturday Night Live after 7 seasons.
And to do this for you, we have pulled together a truly wild stack of sources. We've got the baseline facts from her Wikipedia page, but we're also cross-referencing international reporting from outlets like South Korea's Chosun Biz and Geo News.
Which is fascinating on its own.
It really is. Plus, we've got the domestic tabloid gossip from Page 6 and Perez Hilton. And, to cap it all off, we are plunging straight into the unfiltered, highly speculative conspiracy boards of Reddit.
It is a massive, incredibly fractured spectrum of information. And the mission for you listening today is to help deconstruct how a modern celebrity exit actually functions. We're going to separate the confirmed contractual facts of Fineman's departure from the incredibly messy internet gossip.
Exactly. And more importantly, we're going to look under the hood of the internet's reaction cycle to see how one single, poorly received interview anecdote can completely shift public perception. It can retroactively rewrite a comedian's entire legacy.
It's wild. But wait till you hear what came next, because before we get into the rumors, we have to establish the official reality on the ground. In July 2026, Chloe Fineman announces her departure from SNL. She originally joined the cast back in season 45, which, that was 2019.
Right, 2019.
Yeah. And over those years, she essentially became the show's resident chameleon. Her impressions weren't just funny, they were clinical. I mean, the Drew Barrymore, the Timothée Chalamet, they were uncanny to the point of being almost slightly unsettling.
What's fascinating here is the technical precision she brought to that specific format.
Yeah.
She didn't just mimic a voice, you know. She had this incredible ability to isolate the specific vocal fry or the micro-expressions or the exact physical tick of a celebrity.
It is exactly.
And then she'd magnify it just enough to be absurd without losing the realism. That was her absolute hallmark on the show for 7 solid years.
Which makes her exit announcement on Instagram so compelling. Because it was incredibly sentimental, almost romantic about the grueling nature of the job. According to the quotes pulled by the Nightly, she called working at SNL the greatest privilege of my life.
Wow.
And she didn't just thank the creator. She talked about the chaotic, sleep-deprived fondness she had for the trenches of the show. She specifically mentioned the insanity of sewing a JoJo Siwa costume in 10 hours.
Oh my God, 10 hours.
Right. She talked about sobbing uncontrollably in the hallways over rejected sketch ideas. She even joked about fighting tooth and nail at table reads for a completely absurd sketch called Lipstick for Thick Dogs.
I love that. That specific detail, the lipstick for thick dogs pitch, it really paints a picture of someone deeply entrenched in the weird, messy, highly collaborative reality of the show. It doesn't read like a sanitized PR statement, you know? It reads like someone who genuinely loved the bizarre pressure cooker of Studio 8.
Absolutely.
And we also have to look at the practical catalyst for the timing of this departure. Because according to industry reporting across multiple platforms, she was offered a major role in David E. Kelley's new Netflix drama, Myron Bolitar.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because something is immediately bumping for me when we look at the public's reaction to that news. 7 years is the standard SNL contract. It is the industry baseline. When you get hired, you sign a 7-year deal.
Right. That's just how it works.
When you hit 7 years, your contract is up. It's essentially like hitting free agency in professional sports. Your rookie deal is done, you can test the open market, and she just landed a massive Netflix gig with one of the most prolific showrunners in television history.
Yeah, that's a huge win.
And we also know that her fellow cast member, Bowen Yang, is leaving at the exact same time, also after 7 seasons. So isn't this just a completely natural graduation?
The sports free agency comparison is incredibly apt. I mean, the baseline reality of the situation is almost aggressively mundane. A standard television contract naturally expired, and a highly visible performer received a more lucrative, prestigious offer in premium streaming.
Makes total sense.
Right. And that rapid turnaround for the Netflix casting, which reportedly unfolded in a single day, it forced a very quick, clean break. But, as we know, in the modern media ecosystem, a simple, amicable exit is fundamentally incompatible with the algorithms that drive engagement.
Because peace and quiet don't generate ad revenue.
Precisely. The tabloid syndication machine and the social media platforms that distribute their content, they actively require friction. They need a villain, they need a difficult coworker, or at the bare minimum, they need whispers of backstage toxicity to keep audiences clicking, commenting, and sharing. A headline that reads, "Comedian completes contract and takes new job," is essentially invisible to the modern internet.
Which completely explains the immediate whiplash in the reporting. I mean, the ink wasn't even dry on her sentimental Instagram post before outlets like Page Six and Perez Hilton deployed an entirely different narrative. They started publishing these explosive claims from anonymous backstage insiders, insisting that Fineman rubbed people the wrong way.
Ouch!
Yeah, the specific accusations were that she operated like a diva, expecting other writers and cast members to constantly accommodate her personal schedule and her specific creative preferences.
It is a very deliberate framing. They took the demanding nature of television production and they personalized it to make her the antagonist.
But I want to push back on the tabloids here, because the counter-reporting was instantaneous and very public. We saw current, high-profile SNL stars immediately stepping up to defend her. Marcela Hernandez and Ego Enwoodham were both publicly supporting her, congratulating her on the Netflix role, and other sources were firmly stating there was absolutely no truth to these rumors of a fractured workplace.
And bringing Ego Enwoodham into this conversation actually unlocks a brilliant piece of structural context that we found in the international reporting. The South Korean outlet Chosunbiz did a deep dive into this, and they highlighted previous interviews where Enwoodham described the intense underlying architecture of Saturday Night Live.
Oh, this is fascinating.
Right. SNL is not a normal office. It is an intensely competitive environment where incredibly ambitious people are fighting for a strictly limited resource, which is airtime. Enwoodham pointed out that cast members naturally become obsessed with whether their specific sketch makes it to the live show. That dynamic, by its very design, guarantees a baseline level of envy and friction.
But hold on, isn't that true of literally any high-stakes environment? Yeah. If you are a junior partner at a cutthroat law firm, or, I don't know, a chef in a Michelin-starred kitchen, you are constantly competing for resources, budget, and recognition.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to get annoyed with the people you spend 100 hours a week with. Why is the domestic tabloid media weaponizing standard, everyday office exhaustion against Chloe Fineman specifically?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is because U.S. tabloids rely entirely on the mythical high-stakes tension of the SNL brand. SNL is a zero-sum game. There are only 90 minutes of broadcast time on Saturday night. If my sketch gets approved, your sketch gets cut. It is that simple.
Right.
So if you roll your eyes at a coworker in a normal corporate marketing meeting, it's just a long Tuesday. If you roll your eyes at a writer at SNL, the tabloids can instantly inflate that micro-expression into a bitter, long-standing feud. The structure of the show makes every minor disagreement sound like a heavyweight title fight.
That makes perfect sense structurally, but it still leaves a massive question hanging. Why was the public so eager to buy into the Page Six version of events? The internet could have looked at the competing reports and said, yeah, she's probably just tired after 7 years. Instead, they overwhelmingly bought into the diva narrative. That doesn't happen in a vacuum.
No, it doesn't. And that leads us to the critical turning point of this entire story. To understand why the audience was so primed to view her negatively in July, we actually have to examine a massive public relations failure that happened 3 months earlier.
And if you're loving these Hollywood twists so far, make sure you're subscribed, because we have got even crazier stories ahead in this deep dive.
We really do.
So, April 2026. Fineman sits down for a video interview with Vanity Fair. It's supposed to be standard promotional material.
Okay.
But in the middle of it, she pivots and decides to share an anecdote about being fired from a job as a camp counselor when she was 16 years old.
Okay.
The reason she was let go, she tells the interviewer that she pantsed a 6-year-old boy because he wouldn't stop lifting up her shirt.
Now, if we look at this strictly through the lens of crisis communications, this is a disaster on multiple fronts. The content of the story itself is highly questionable, but the delivery is what truly doomed her. She presented it as a lighthearted, quirky anecdote. The tone completely failed to read the room.
It was excruciating to watch. If you look at the raw footage, fellow cast member Sarah Sherman is sitting right next to her. Sherman is a comedian known for extreme, boundary-pushing body horror comedy, and even she looks visibly uncomfortable. She freezes.
Yeah, you can literally see it.
And the internet, which analyzes celebrity body language like the Zapruder film, caught that reaction instantly. The backlash was immediate. People felt the story was wildly inappropriate, and they were furious that Fineman seemed entirely oblivious to why it was wrong.
And this is where a bad judgment call mutates into a full-blown PR crisis. According to the reporting from Geo News, which again shows how globally syndicated these American pop culture missteps have become, Vanity Fair panicked.
Oh boy.
Instead of issuing a clarifying statement or letting Fineman address the discomfort, the publication attempted to quietly do damage control. They went into the digital file and edited the video, they scrubbed the mention of the child's age, and they aggressively edited around the uncomfortable, frozen reactions of the other cast members in the room.
Which is the single worst thing you can do on the modern internet. You cannot quietly edit a video once millions of people have already screen recorded it.
It is a textbook catastrophe. By attempting to hide the mistake instead of addressing it, Vanity Fair triggered a massive Streisand effect. It's that classic phenomenon. The moment you try to censor or scrub information from the internet, you essentially take out a billboard advertising it to the world. The act of the cover-up becomes a bigger story than the original offense.
Because it validates the audience's worst suspicions.
Exactly. The conversation shifted overnight. It went from Chloe Fineman lacks self-awareness and told a bad joke to the powerful media machine is actively conspiring to protect her and gaslight the public. It implied a level of guilt and institutional corruption that just poured gasoline on the initial backlash.
That botched cover-up essentially handed the internet a blank check to investigate her. And if you give internet sleuth a reason to dig, they will excavate your entire life. Once that Vanity Fair incident destroyed her public goodwill, these digital communities didn't just express their anger and move on. They began actively hunting for any scrap of evidence to validate their newfound disdain for her.
They needed retroactive justification for their anger.
Exactly. And later in this deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming regarding all of this. Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out.
You won't want to miss it.
Because here is where it gets really interesting. We dive into the Reddit sources for this, specifically the subreddit for Los Culturistas. For listeners who might not know, Los Culturistas is a massive culture-defining podcast hosted by SNL's Bowen Yang and comedian Matt Rogers. These fans have a deep parasocial relationship with the hosts. They feel like they're sitting in the room with them every week.
And because podcasting is an unscripted conversational medium, highly engaged fans love to track the microdynamics. They track who gets praised, who gets ignored, and who gets subtle shade.
And the Reddit sleuths found their pattern. They noticed that Bowen Yang rarely, if ever, mentioned Chloe Fineman by name on the podcast. This is despite the fact that she was a guest on their show years ago, long before she even joined SNL.
Right.
Because the internet had just decided they despised Fineman over the Vanity Fair story. They didn't look at this omission logically. They didn't think, oh, SNL has a huge cast, maybe they just run in different circles. They constructed an elaborate omission theory.
The absence of a shout-out became irrefutable evidence of a bitter, behind-the-scenes war.
And then they introduced the ultimate accelerant to the fire. Her documented membership in the Church of Scientology. The Reddit boards pulled up every piece of lore they could find. They circulated claims of intense, incredibly expensive purification ceremonies that involved sitting in saunas for days on end.
What?
Yeah. They shared rumors about her allegedly handing out Dianetics materials to people in the comedy scene. The narrative completely crystallized. In their minds, Bowen Yang doesn't talk about her because she has weird toxic energy, and she has weird energy because she is deeply embedded in a controversial organization.
And to be clear, our mandate here is to impartially report on how these sources function, not to litigate the religious or personal aspects of her life, but we have to examine how the internet weaponizes this kind of information. Once a community like that Reddit board adopts a lens of intense suspicion, it permanently colors every single interaction they observe from that point forward.
It's wild how our brains do that. The audience essentially put on a pair of glasses that filtered out everything except evidence that she was difficult. We saw these same Reddit users go back and retroactively judge her final season on the show, season 50, through this new hostile filter.
Oh, totally.
Suddenly, sketches that were completely fine were being dragged as proof that she was phoning it in. They complained relentlessly about her breaking character and laughing during live sketches. They fixated on what they deemed a terrible Sydney Sweeney impression, using it as proof that her talent was fading.
It is the absolute pinnacle of confirmation bias. When we have a pre-existing belief, our brains actively hunt for information that confirms it, and we ignore the data that contradicts it.
Think about the double standard there. When an actor the internet loves breaks character like, say, Bill Hader or Jimmy Fallon, the audience thinks it's the most endearing, hilarious thing in the world.
Oh, they eat it up.
Right. It shows they're having fun. But because the internet had decided they hated Chloe Fineman, her breaking character was suddenly framed as unprofessional and disrespectful to the writers. Every Skip podcast shout-out was a confirmed feud. Every average sketch was a sign of terminal decline. The actual quality of her performance probably didn't change a bit in season 50, but the audience's filter had completely warped their reality.
This really highlights the impossible calibration required of modern celebrity. The internet acts almost like a digital autoimmune system. The moment a crack appears, like that poorly calibrated camp counselor story, the system senses a foreign body. It senses something it doesn't like, and it attacks every conceivable aspect of that person's existence.
Yeah.
It pulls up their religion, it analyzes their microexpressions with co-stars, it scrutinizes every frame of their art. What is fundamentally a simple career transition between two television networks becomes a relentless trial by public opinion.
So what does this all actually mean for the way we consume pop culture? If we pull back and look at the whole board, the factual reality of Chloe Fineman's exit is strikingly simple. We have a 37-year-old comedian who finished a grueling standard 7-year contract. She got an incredibly lucrative offer to star in a prestige Netflix thriller, and she took it. That is the baseline truth.
But through the distorting, high-pressure lens of our digital ecosystem, that simple career move became a sprawling, chaotic saga. It morphed into a story about cults, about hidden podcast rivalries, and about child endangerment at summer camps. It forces us to ask a really vital question of ourselves regarding our own media literacy. How often do we scroll through a Reddit thread, see thousands of upvotes on a wild theory, and mistake that community's massive confirmation bias for actual behind-the-scenes truth?
It is terrifyingly easy to get swept up in the current of collective outrage. Once the internet decides someone is a villain, the facts are entirely secondary to the vibe, which leaves us with one final, provocative thought to mull over. We live in an era where every off-the-cuff anecdote is dissected by millions of people. We live in a world where a magazine trying to edit a video is treated like a global conspiracy, and where a coworker forgetting to mention your name on a podcast is accepted as a smoking gun of a bitter workplace feud.
The surveillance is total, and the margin for error has been reduced to absolute zero.
So in an environment like that, is it even possible for comedians to be the weird, messy, boundary-pushing people that made them funny in the first place? Or will this intense fear of the internet echo chamber, this constant dread of having your entire life excavated over a clumsy story or an awkward vibe force all future entertainers to become completely sanitized, highly calibrated corporate robots who never take a risk?
It's a chilling thought. If the cost of a bad joke is your entire legacy, we might be engineering the eccentricities right out of our artists.
We really might be. You've been listening to Starscope Report, where your hosts uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning into this deep dive, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining. Until next time, remember, the next time the cameras flash, the lights go down, and the crowd freezes for the next big celebrity scandal, there is almost always a much simpler, far more human truth hiding just out of frame.